The New York Times is one of the largest news outlets in the world, and they have to make sure that their systems stay up even during peak loads like the election season. Today, we will see the story of how New York Times prepared their systems before the 2020 American presidential elections. Now, during an election, New York Times will have a lot of visitors looking at their results. Now, these results won't just be showing numbers, but maps, graphics, data driven pages. They had to plan and prepare the infrastructure so that it does not go down on any load. Let's see what are the things they did. The election readiness effort began in 2016 with a content delivery network or a CDN, which could provide them with protection against traffic surges. Now, if you don't know what a CDN is, just think about it as a large network of servers which caches information, and most of the times they cache static pages, like news articles. So that the user's request does not have to go to the main server all the way. They can just go to the CDN, which is maybe geographically closer to the user, and get back the response. This makes sure that the latency is less and also there is less load on the main server. In 2017, they started moving their systems from on-prem to cloud. They moved everything to Kubernetes on Google Kubernetes Engine or GKE because that was the most mature Kubernetes platform back then. They also moved some systems to AWS EC2 and they were done with all of it by April 2018. In September 2018, they published a guest essay by an anonymous author from the Trump administration, and the resultant traffic surge told them that they needed a lot more work to make the system safe from outages, and they had to work a lot for the midterms in 2018. We are not going into what they did for that today, but in 2019, they kicked off their preparedness for the 2020 American presidential elections. So the first thing that they knew was that they cannot have resiliency everywhere, and they have many systems to take care of. So they put them in tiers according to how critical they are. Tier 0 includes workflows dealing with publishing because if it fails, they won't be able to get the news out. And the last time they were not able to get the news out was in 1978. And these are mission critical systems that can never go down. Then comes the tier 1 workflows, which are related to subscriptions, push notifications, marketing. After that, they have the tier 2 systems, which include things like commenting, advertising, and data capturing. By tiering the system, it helps them to prioritize and plan the development effort they want to put in various parts of the system. Because see, in real life, you have constraints. You cannot spend unlimited time and money on everything. Prioritization helps in deciding trade-offs and what to have and what to not have. In the past, they had a cron job to poll election data, which they took and published to their pages. Now they want to have real-time interactive feeds, so they request the election data every time the client sends a request, and in the middle it is cached in the CDN level at the cloud. Now the problem is that clouds do go down and there is not a guarantee if it will go down during an election. In fact, NYT had many outages related to cloud failures in the 2 years leading up to their decision. One thing they did was to keep the system void of very cloud-specific technologies so that the vendor can be changed easily. But see, deploying the same system to multiple clouds won't be as simple, and it also would be quite costly. They understood that the global cloud outages are quite uncommon, but the regional outages might happen. So they did their drills with their engineers and properly documented how to pivot the stack from an unoperational cloud region to an operational one if the time came. When the traffic is high for the New York Times, they might have tens and thousands of requests per second. Even at those times, they want to show at least the election map and who won from where. They created a failover stack with bare minimum functionality for this to serve statically generated content with all this information. And all this would go out using the CDNs, and that would be directly served from the block storage. Now, what if the CDN goes down? They kept a backup CDN only for the tier 0 systems. You can see that having tiers here are helping them decide on what to prioritize. Having it for all the system might be too expensive and complex. Now the primary CDN was Fastly, but they had the Google CDN as a backup. If Fastly was to go down, then the traffic would be rerouted to Google CDN. Although luckily there was no Fastly outages in 2020 elections, but in June 2021, Fastly went down and this failover plan actually helped them. Now in 2020, not only the election was going on, but also the pandemic. So it was difficult to predict how large the traffic on election day would be to test. But on the past data, they saw that the presidential election day, the traffic would be 8 times the normal. So they planned to test on this number and gradually increase that number to 10 times the normal traffic. Because they had tiers of priority, they knew which systems to test first. They also noticed the dependencies between these systems and notified their teams. Like, let's say a tier 0 service depends on some components of a tier 1 service. Having a large load on the tier 0 service will also affect the tier 1 service. So the responsible teams for this tier 1 service must know that a test is going on in the tier 0 service so that they can prepare their systems accordingly. During the stress test, they had 4 distinct roles and responsibilities assigned to the team. The executor role ran and executed the stress test. Technical leads from various teams monitored the system's dashboards for their team so that if anything goes wrong, the application team gets to know about that. Then there were communicators who essentially kept everyone informed about the progress of the process. They also had stress test leads who were responsible for coordinating everyone and making important decisions like, hey, should we shut down the stress test now because there are some problems? So those important calls need to be taken by someone. They actually got kind of a real life test before the elections when they published an investigation on President Trump's taxes in September 2020. And they saw this subscription system buckle under the load. So they fortified that system before the elections. They did further drills, planned for 43 unique disaster scenarios, and for all this hard work, they had no major incidents on the election day. So what can we learn from this is the amount of planning and work that goes into designing and building systems for so much more than the normal traffic in situations where you cannot really afford to fail. So this is all I had for today. Do leave a like and hit that subscribe button for more content like this. See you in the next video. Bye.